It is time to learn from another home service business owner who has been through the struggles and made it to the other side. What's up, blue collar business owner? Welcome back to the Blue Collar Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Maskler, where we focus on helping guide you to have a prosperous business. Today, we have with us Cory Parks. Cory is the president and founder of HydroHelp 911. At HydroHelp, they focus on helping homeowners solve structural and moisture issues before they become costly and dangerous. They are the crawl space and foundation experts in the Charlotte metro area, but it wasn't always easy. Cory Parks, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. What's going on today?
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this. We've done this a few times, and I find that our listeners really get a lot out of it because they can relate to the journey of starting a home service business, scaling it, running into all the bumps and detours along the way. So before we jump into all the good, the bad, and the ugly of your journey, how did you actually get started to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so before I go in that, I want to, hopefully relate to some of the listeners. Like, I'm a blue collar guy. I'm like blue collar as they come, and I've had to figure some of this out as I went. But I started out, I was a career fireman, a full time fireman for the city of Charlotte for 12 years, and most firemen have a sideline job. So I got into crawl space work as a sideline job. And I knew very quickly, like, nobody wakes up and says, I want to work in a crawl space, right? So, like, I did not want to work in a crawl space. But there was a demand there. There was a need in our area. And so, I said, hey, let's see how fast I can grow this thing while hopefully remaining profitable. And there's been some years we was and some years we wasn't. But how quick can I get myself out of the crawl space? So, firemen, as blue collar as they come, and I've transitioned and learned, and I know we'll hit on it later, but invested in myself and also my team to hopefully, or to been able to get out of the crawl space.
Yeah, so let's dig in. What year did you start the business, and how many years did it take to get out of the crawl space?
So, started the business again as a sideline business in 2017. Um, I, believe it or not, like, I did very little work in the crawl space. Actually, I mean, I quoted the jobs and I managed the business. But working another full time job, I had to rely on subcontractors at the beginning. Um, and it was basically a sideline job dealing with subcontractors for probably the first 4 years. So through the end of 2020. So starting in 2021 is kind of when we started hiring on full time people. Me and my dad's never owned a business, but he has managed large, $500 million budgets before. So, like, we put together a spreadsheet and we said, hey, let's put together a plan and let's test out how we can grow this thing. And, like, we see that there is a demand there. Let's figure out how much demand. And we put together a plan, as best of a plan as we could, for two rookies who've never owned a business,
Oof.
never grew up in a family of having businesses. Like, we just tried modeling out several scenarios. And yeah, I mean, it just, it's kind of evolved from there, and it's went from crawl space work to basement to foundations, and it's just evolved over time. But really, I would say the first 4 years, was kind of the sideline job, silent, just kind of doing it on the side as a fireman.
So we kind of talked about it before the show, and then you just mentioned it again about using subs for the first 4 years. There's a lot of people listening. Everybody in the trades goes through it. Some people love subs, some people can't stand them. You used them for 4 years, and then you transition into using employees. What made you switch, and are you glad you did?
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I like being able to have control. I like to be able to control our quality. I like to be able to control our processes, our systems in place, and control the customer experience. And when you use subs, you lose a lot of that control. That they're getting, your subs are giving them the bare minimum. They're showing up, doing the work, and leaving. And I didn't want that. And, well, one of the things I learned at the fire department is like training, how important training is. Right, at the fire department, training is, people's lives depend on firemen being trained and competent. So I took that training mentality and that training mindset to the private industry in this business, and I said, I want to be able to train my own people. And when you're dealing with subs, like, you're limited on how much you can get them to do and how much you can get them to come in for training and how much you really are going to invest in them. So I brought that in house. Like I said, about 2021, I knew I had to invest in my people, both, personally and professionally. I have to say in here, if, I would love for people to, every single person that walks through my doors, to spend 30 years with me, but I know that's not the reality. Um, The reality is if they leave me better than they came, then that's a win for me personally, right? And better could be a better husband, better father, better boyfriend, girlfriend, better worker, better leader, like whatever better means to that person. I just want them to be better. And I knew I had to invest in that training to be able to not just make customers happy, but make them ecstatic, make them many little marketing machines for me when they're telling their friends and their neighbors and their families and stuff like that. So that's kind of the training background is what kind of brought that to me. And yes, I'm super grateful that we don't have to deal with subs a whole lot. Um, it just, I like being able to control our processes. And when we involve subs, it throws some things off. And I don't think the customer has the same experience as when we deal with it all in house.
For sure. So two of the biggest things that you hit on, the customer experience, being able to control the entire experience, all the touch points, making it stand out from everybody else. And then obviously being able to train the team on a regular basis so they can, deliver on that customer experience, the promise you're making. So what does your training process look like, whether it's someone that just starts with you or ongoing training? What does that look like?
Well, the first thing we do is we invest heavily into hiring to make sure that when we put them through training, they are competent enough to understand and grasp and retain the information that we're going to give them. If we put them through several personality tests and cognitive tests and stuff like that, and it kind of sounds a little odd being that we're such a blue collar business, but if they can't retain information like that they're not going to help us grow this company. But after that, we have an onboarding process, just like we did at the fire departments. When I got hired at the fire department, I went through 6 months of recruit school or rookie school or training school, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, we can't provide 6 months here, but we do have I think it's been dialed back. I think my manager's dialed it back to 2 days, but it was a 3 day onboarding process after a working interview. So the first thing is they'll come in, they'll do a working interview. My foremans have sheets they have to fill out to tell us like, hey, they're worth investing 2 days of training into, or no, they're not. And if they're not, we let them go. Like, so we'll give them 3 days in the field for a working interview. If we don't see that they have it in 3 days, and we tell them this up front, so this is no surprise when they accept the position. And then we'll put them through onboarding. And the onboarding varies a little bit, whether it's office staff, whether it's sales or production. Our sales onboarding is about 30 days. Our production onboarding is 2 to 3 days. And then, there's continuous onboarding. I call it onboarding, continuous training that goes on in the field. And we pay two of our foremans, or let me back up, one of them, getting ready to be a second foreman, an additional base salary each year to take over that training role.
That's awesome. So work is a lot of the things you do on like you said, before we even bring somebody on, the hiring process is super important. I feel a lot of blue collar people that complain that we can't find good help. You mentioned before the show, you got almost 30 people. So obviously you're able to find these people if you have the proper processes in place, and we're proactively recruiting and hiring and doing all that kind of stuff. So personality tests are huge. Curious on the working interview, what does that look like? Because if I had to guess, most people listening to this are not doing that, and sounds like it can weed out a lot of people. What does that look like for you guys?
So the working interview for us is really like, we don't expect them to know what we're doing. We don't expect them to know the terminology that we're using. We don't expect them to know nothing. What we do expect, and again, we tell them this all up front before they start, we do expect them to show up early. Like if they're showing up 2 minutes late on the first day, guess what they're going to do on the second month of working for you? They're going to be 30 minutes late. That's not a good sign. They're not going to make it. So we're looking to see, can they show up early? Are they willing to talk to everybody in the production field, having conversations? Do they have a good attitude? If somebody says, dang, I forgot to go get this, are they the first ones to step up and say, hey, I'll go get it? Those are the type of people that we're looking for. And again, a lot of this I learned from being a rookie at the fire department. A rookie at the fire department in the fire service, you are expected to do everything. You cook, you clean the toilets, you take care of all the patients on calls, you do all the grunt rookie stuff. And it's just a part of the fire service. At some point you'll age out of that, and there'll be new rookies that take over all that. So we're really looking for new employees to be rookies, to not necessarily just to be laborers. We're looking for them to be willing to learn, be willing to do the hard stuff now. Because if they don't do the hard stuff now, they're not going to be able to promote to co-foremans or foremans on my crews if they didn't learn how to do the grunt work to begin with. So yeah, I mean, just we're just looking for good attitudes, willing to step up, willing to help out, not on their phone all day. If every time they go to, take 3 steps, they pull their phone out, they're not going to work out. What we have found is the the overwhelming majority of people do not get better with time. They actually get worse, and the reason they get worse is because they get comfortable. And it's that's why we only give them 3 days. I'm pushing my management team to dial it back to 1 day. We need to be able to figure this out in 1 day with all the stuff we're doing before we hire them. We need to have one working day interview. And we met with a bunch of consultants on hiring, and they both asked me, they said, "Hey, who has 3 days to do a working interview?" And they're like, "People without a job." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." He's like, people can get 1 day off. Like they can take a vacation day or they can come in on a Saturday. Like they can find 1 day. Very rarely can they find 3 days in a row. So I'm pushing my team right now to push that working interview to 1 day.
Yeah, that's a great point because ideally, most of our best employees are already employed somewhere else to begin with, right? They're not
That's,
unemployed.
that's
So
correct.
it's hard to just call your boss tomorrow and be like, "Oh, something happened and I'm out the next 3 days."
Yep.
Not going to work really well. And then they might lose that job too. So we had alluded to it a little bit earlier. I want to kind of come back to it is the customer experience. You're able to control that a lot better with having all employees not using subs. What are some of the things that you believe set your customer experience apart from all the other people out there doing the same thing that you're doing?
I know it's probably pretty cliche to say nowadays. And I think a lot of people say communication, but their communication ain't really where it needs to be. Um, we do take communication to the next level. And the reason we do that is, if I put a process in, it's just say our communication outreach from the time a customer signs a contract to the time we finish that job is 20 times. If we miss one of those steps or one of those outreaches, or maybe even two of those outreaches, we've still reached out to them 18 times. That is still probably 15 more times than my competitors. So like we are constantly talking to them, and nowadays it may even be just text. It may be shooting Loom videos and sending them a link. But probably the biggest thing that we've done to set us apart is we have trained and forced our foremans with, and basically turned them into mini project managers. So when they go out that first day, or actually it starts the morning of before they even get out there, but they introduce themselves and they take that job over. We have a production manager that's ultimately responsible, but with 5 crews getting ready to be 6, like we need those foremans communicating and making that customer happy. And the way we judge this is are you getting a review when the job is done, and how detailed is that review? Like if you're just getting a review that says that Bob was great, that ain't cutting it. That is not cutting it. Like people who are truly happy are leaving you a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, and they're leaving it with pictures. And it helps us on the marketing side with the algorithm as well. So it's a win-win. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's we have really invested in our people. We ask our foremen to read audio books to learn. We take a day off. It's a day a quarter right now, a full day off, and do training. I'm trying to dial that back as the profit allows to a day a month for everybody to be training. And it could be hands-on training, how to pour concrete, slick it up, make it look nice, but it could also be role playing, which is crazy to think role playing with blue collar guys, but we do role playing that initial customer interaction. That how do you get a review? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't get a customer to leave me a review." Like my guys used to tell me that 2 years ago, and last month we finished 48 jobs and we got 41 5-star reviews. Like they
They
2 years
figured
ago
it out.
2 years ago they told me they couldn't do it. What gonna happen? They told me, give me a gun, we'll hold it to the customer's head, we'll get reviews in. I said, well, we ain't doing that. But so yeah, we've just, I mean, kind of back to the initial conversation when we first started, is we're investing in our people, but that really starts with me investing in myself and learning from people who are doing better than me, more revenue, more crews, more profit, bigger than I am. Invest in myself, I invest in my management team, and we take that all the way down.
That's awesome. I love taking the day off and really just focusing on ourselves and practicing and everything. Because going back to the team thing and probably even the fire department, but even you look at sports teams, they practice more than they actually play. Whereas blue collar, we play way more than we practice. And like you said, sometimes it's hard to get the blue collar guys to role play at first. Like, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. That's not for
Yep.
me. I'm just here to pour concrete. I'm just here to, seal this crawl space, whatever it is. But then all of a sudden they start to see the results, and then they start making more money and they start having more opportunity. Like, holy cow, this does work. And what I found is really it's the first time they've ever been treated like that. Like, this is actually a career path and you can move up and you can make a living and you can build wealth, versus the mentality that, in my opinion, the country has had for so long of, oh, I'm just a blue collar guy. I'm just a plumber. I'm just an HVAC technician. In reality, they're all way more important than a lot of other people that are working in this country. So you've hit on it a couple of times, investing in yourself. I want to go there, first, how you invest in yourself, and then we'll kind of go into a little bit deeper into how you invest in your team. But what are some of the things that you have done for yourself that you found made a monumental difference to get over those humps, going from first to 1 million, then to 5 million, and now you guys are going to continue to grow and expand? What are some of the biggest things that you've done to invest in yourself to push to that next level?
Yeah, one of the biggest things, and I understand not everybody has the luxury of doing this, but being a fireman, you especially for a large metro department, you learn some leadership traits like very quickly, and you get to learn from guys who have been leaders for. I mean, there were some captains there that have been captains for 20, 25 years when I come on at that moment, and most of those people are willing to invest in the rookies, as long as the rookies willing to invest in themselves. So 12 years at the fire department, I learned a lot of good things about leadership. Now, that did come with some headaches in the private industry, because in a government job, like you can suck to the max and you're still going to get paid. Like you got to commit murder to get fired from a government job. So in the private industry, initially I was allowing a little bit too much freedom with my guys, but I quickly adapted. But since I've transitioned full time in the private industry, I've had a business coach for 3 years. Um, it was a lot of money. Still is a lot of money today. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times the question I ask myself is not, can I afford to do this? That's what a lot of people say. Can I afford to do this? I ask myself, can I afford not to do this? And so at the time, I couldn't afford a business coach. And he come highly recommended. I felt confident he was worth it. I just couldn't afford it. Reached out to him, and he made one comment. He said, "Cory, if you're going to pay me, I think it was $30,000 a year." He's like, if I don't return 100,000 back in the first 12 months, we've got serious problems. I know I got confidence in myself. I know I can do it as long as you do the work. And I said, you know what? This call was for me to budget for a few months, but let's start today. And I couldn't afford it, but we started today, and here we are, almost 3.5 years later, and it's been one of the best things I've done. From a personal, like we talk about some personal stuff, personal finances, personal investing. What 5, 10 years look like for me personally, but we also talk a lot about the business. We talk a lot about my leadership team. How if I'm growing, they got to grow with. Everybody's got to grow together, or you create a win-loss scenario. And anytime, and this is actually a motto I have in my company, like we create win-win scenarios: win for the company, win for the employees, and a win for the homeowners. And anytime there's a loss somewhere in there, if the customer's losing, the employee's losing, the company's losing, it's not going to last long. It's not. So the business coach, I'm also constantly reading, or I listen mostly to audiobooks. There's several books out there that I have to read because they're not on audio form. Looking and watching people like Tommy Mello. I'll be honest with you, Tommy Mello, like in my opinion, he does not hold back. I've sent Tommy Mello. Hopefully this doesn't blow up his inbox. I've sent him some messages on Facebook, and he replies. Like, and I personally believe it's him. He's not sending me paragraph replies because he's busy. He ain't got time, but like he's to the point. He answers my questions. And I've just looked at people like that and saying, hey, the path through the woods is already cleared. Like Tommy, Brian Gottlieb, some of these other people who have already built these large private businesses, the path through the woods is already cleared. I can make a great living for myself and my family and my employees if I just follow that path. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to clear a new path through the woods. We may have to take a detour if I want to test things out and try new things from time to time, but generally speaking, I try to stay on that path. And it's worked out well for me. I invested coaching for my management team as well. So my office manager, she handles our financials. We have a financial coach as well as a call center coach. She oversees the call center. My sales manager, we toggle this on and off. So it's not a full-time coach, but we have a sales coach, And then my business coach also meets weekly with my production manager as well. So I'm investing in them, and these are things that I hope that they're learning to better this business. But even if even if they leave me at some point, like these are things that's going to stay with them that I'm paying for and I'm investing in them. And so far it's been nothing but wins for us.
That's amazing. I love the win-win-win mentality. And I think where a lot of business owners, blue collar business owners especially, can get hung up is like, well, if I'm going to pay this guy $30,000, what's the actual return? Because we're just like black and white, we're technicians. And a lot of times it doesn't work that way. Like if LeBron James hires another coach, LeBron James hires more coaches than anybody else. And he's been doing this longer than anybody. He's got someone figuring out every single aspect of his life so he can excel and get a little bit better. But he's not saying if I hire this guy, I'm going to make one more 3-pointer this year. Like it's not like that, right? But that business coach did his job and said, Cory, if you pay me $30,000 and you put in all the work that I tell you to do, you will get a return on this. Now it's
Yep.
like, now you're challenging me. And coming from your background, that's what you want and that's what you need. But I feel a lot of times we're always waiting. Well, give me another month or two and then I'll do it. Give me another month or two and I'll do it. And we never do it because we're not changing anything, but we're expecting different results. So I love just going in, investing, and when we do put in the time, we do get the results. Let's kind of start to shift. We've talked a lot about investing in team, investing in yourself, what you do with your customer experience. We on the show, we're all about numbers. You can't get to this, and you mentioned you have a financial coach that works with your office manager. So I'm curious of, you couldn't get to where you are today without knowing your numbers, building that solid foundation. I feel a lot of business owners are like, well, just more revenue will solve that problem. Me being a fractional CFO, I know that's not going to solve the problem. You know that's not going to solve the problem. But how important was it to you along the way, and still important to you today, of just really, like you said, you're a blue collar by trade, but you still got to know your numbers. How important was it for you to know those numbers so you can really get those financials dialed in before you scale to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, listen, no, my dad's been telling me since I can remember, numbers don't lie, right? And again, that's coming from his background of managing a $500 million budget. Um, I thought, I was fortunate to grow up from my dad because he was blue collar, but he's also white collar in his professional career. If we had a plumbing leak at home, we went to Lowe's and we fixed that plumbing leak. We wasn't paying nobody. But in his professional career, the white collar side of him, he was running those scenarios and modeling things out. And I will tell you, to this day, we are still learning new metrics and new numbers that we need to be tracking. And that whole saying, you don't know what you don't know, is true. And that's where those coaches can help speed things up. And my coach tells me that as well. He's like, listen, like, would you have got to where you are today at some point? Absolutely. He's like, you're just paying for speed. That's ultimately what you're paying for, and to hopefully prevent you from making most of the mistakes. You're still gonna make mistakes, but at least most of them. Um, the finances, as good as I felt like I was, has been a constant battle. There's just so many numbers that you got to track. And as you're growing a company, you only have so much bandwidth, especially when you're starting off and you're doing sales. You're having to do inventory. You're having to get the job supplies to the job site. You're having to be the customer facing person in the company. Like you're having to wear all the hats. You can only track so many metrics. In myself, along with a lot of other blue collar guys, I lived off of cash flow for the longest time. And it wasn't until the last probably year and a half when we finally swapped over to accrual accounting where we were really able to see, are we making a profit or are we not? The swap over from cash to accrual accounting was a major headache. It's definitely more work on a month to month basis, but it gives us a lot clearer picture to see, are we making money? And then also, you know, we're now able to forecast accurately, with some reasonable expectations in the future, the next 12, 24 months, whatever that looks like. We've made many mistakes. I like to tell people this, and I'll keep it short. We had a major financial issue in 2023. We swapped over to a new CRM. Long story short, we swapped to a new CRM that integrated QuickBooks. When we canceled a job, it was sending a duplicate. It wasn't canceling the job in QuickBooks, which is where I made all my decisions off of. It was sending a duplicate to that job. So if it's a $20,000 job and we canceled it, we marked it canceled in our CRM. Is supposed to send it to QuickBooks as canceled. Well, it was sending a duplicate. So it's sending $40,000 to
Ouch.
QuickBooks with no expenses tied to it. So you can imagine what my net profit, and we don't
It's
have
looking
many.
great.
Oh, it's looking great. Like we don't have many canceled jobs and we don't have many change orders. But the few we do have throughout a year, like I want to say it was a 6 to 7, if I remember correctly, a $600,000 to $700,000 swing. And that whole 6 to 700,000 was at the bottom line. So, I tell people this. I left a 6-figure salary at the fire department as a captain. I left a private pension. I left benefits based on those wrong numbers. I bought a $750,000 commercial facility financed based off those wrong numbers. So I had to call the bank and say, hey, this wasn't negligence. This wasn't on purpose. I didn't lie. I'll still be able to make the mortgage. I'm good there, but I don't want y'all to find this out because it was through an SBA loan. So, I got to submit financials every so often or whatever. And I didn't want them to think that we forged numbers and lied and, falsified documents and stuff like that. So I was being upfront and honest and transparent with them. I promoted I promoted one person. I gave some pay raises. Like, this is how big this issue was. And then we found out, about 4 months later after I left the fire department. This had been going on for about 8 months. We integrated that CRM in February. We found out December 1st or 2nd. And boy, that was some challenging times. And we're still, I mean, we had to utilize debt to get out of it. We paid the debt off last year. Now this year we're working on building our rainy day fund back up, to have, in case something goes wrong. But, it was a huge mistake. And this is coming from a guy who thought he knew his numbers. I tracked them. I track my numbers closely, right? I've been being told since I was 10 years old, numbers don't lie from my father. Why would I not track them? So I was tracking them, and things can still happen. And this is where having those coaches, having a second set of eyes and stuff like that to help work through these problems really, really helped us.
100%. And to your point, having that second or third set of eyes, I mean, that we work, here we work directly with the bookkeeper and the owner. So we've got three different people making sure everything's dialed in because of that. Because it's like you said, it's even if you just have one canceled job a month, that's 40 grand a month. And you probably don't even notice it because, divide that 40 grand by however many jobs you do. It's like, oh, that's only $1,500 a day. But all of a sudden at the end of the year, that's 700,000. You're like, wow, we're making decisions off of that.
Yep.
And we actually don't have that money. So with where you're at today, give our listeners just like 3 to 5 main financial metrics, KPIs, margins that you track as the owner of your organization.
Oh man, only 3 to 5. Um, so at my level, marketing is still on my plate. So I do track our leads and sold jobs and where those sold jobs are coming from pretty heavily. That's if you're investing. We spend anywhere from 80 to 100,000 a month on marketing. So we have to track that. If you're a smaller company, that may not be something you track right now, but you will eventually. We track gross profit percentage. But we actually learned that tracking percentages can have some negative consequences. So now we actually track gross profit dollars per day. Again, 2 years ago, I didn't have the bandwidth. My team didn't have the bandwidth to track that. So these metrics grow as your team grows. Sales, of course, sales close percentage, average dollar, ADL, average dollar per lead. But yeah, those are just some basic ones. I mean, we track a lot more. But at my level, it's mainly the marketing stuff, since I still handle all that in house. And the gross profit dollars per day is a big one from a production standpoint. The percentages can get you in trouble, so don't solely rely. You need to look at them, but don't solely rely on them. But the gross profit dollars per day has really helped push things to the next level for us.
Yeah, I love that metric, especially because then you know what your overhead is, right? So you could have been at 80% gross profit, which is unheard of. But if you only did one job and it's not covering your overhead, then it doesn't really matter. So that's why it's important to track both, making sure, hey, our guys are efficient, we're pricing things properly, we're hitting our margin, but then we're also bringing enough money per day to not only pay all the overhead, but then pay any debt that's on the balance sheet, pay taxes that'll come at some point, and still have money left over for profit. So I love that metric. And if you're not big enough and you're listening, you can even just track gross profit per week, gross profit per month. So that way you at least,
Yep.
where we're tracking. And then in my opinion, from a dispatch side, then they know what to start to shoot for as well. Like, okay, we got to do this much revenue or this much gross profit per day. in order to meet our goals. So I love that metric. That's a super insightful share. Appreciate that. Now let's just last thing. You mentioned marketing. You're still kind of overseeing marketing. Obviously, you said you guys spend $80,000 to $100,000 a month in marketing. You guys are growing quickly. You're profitable. What are the big things that you're focused on from a sales and marketing standpoint to continue to capture a few percentage points here and there to continue to bump up?
Um, Marketing is a love-hate relationship. Um, and I'm actually, as of yesterday, after my leadership meeting, we're actually going to dial marketing back a little bit. I'm very big on testing. Um, what may work for somebody in a different geographical area or a different industry may not work in your geographical, or may or may not work. So I'm very big. To me, it's not proven unless it's been tested in that market, in that industry. Um, so for example, like we got a guy up in Chicago that kills it with Yelp. And I know historically blue collar guys say, Yelp's just where everybody goes to complain and leave bad reviews. And Yelp does have a very weird review process that I'm not a fan of. But he kills it. So I was like, you know what? Let me test it out. I tested it out for 4 months. I think we spent $15,000 or $16,000 on it in those 4 months, and nothing. So I cut it off. So I like testing things out, but I'm almost to a point now where I know what works. Organic's working for us. And again, this is just our industry, our market. You listeners, you're in a different market, different industry, different things may work, but organic works for us. Of course, our Google business profile, we see some really good results from. TV commercials is kind of a gut feeling. I feel like they're working pretty good. They're kind of, TV's kind of like billboards. It's super hard to track. But we do hear a lot of good feedback from our customers about seeing our commercials. And then Google LSA. LSA, local service ads, have been pretty good for us. We actually just cut PPC off. And then, we were spending 18,000 a month on pay per click, and we were getting a lot of leads from it. But we were only seeing about a 1.8 return on ad spend for the first half of this year. And we ain't even in the ballpark. Like, if we was closer to 6 or 7, I'd be looking to see if we could optimize it a little bit better. But at 1.8, there's no way you can optimize it to get to where we need to be at 8.3. So like we're actually kind of tucking in our shell right now. Like, we're gonna just hammer down on what we know is working. Part of that 18,000, I'm gonna reallocate to probably organic and SEO, our organic and SEO company that handles that for us. They've been working on for about the past 6 or 8 months a lot of the changes that are here that's to come, but that's already came with AI. We're already seeing that. That's probably most of the reason why PPC isn't having as much success, is people are now going to ChatGPT and Grok and several other AIs, and they're typing their problems and they're getting the results they need. So we're kind of focusing on that at the moment and really trying to hammer down on that to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, for the listeners out there, a ton of great insight, in my opinion, because I feel a lot of times we as business owners, and I've been there as a blue collar business owner, sometimes we get frustrated with our marketing company because what they're doing is not working and it's working over here. And like you said, no matter the market or the industry, we have to test it. To Cory's point, and to kudos to Cory, of like having all the measurables for this to know if it's actually working. Because if we just measured leads, you'd be like, oh, PPC's crushing it. We're getting a bunch of leads. But if we follow that lead through the entire process, we realize that lead's actually a terrible lead versus all organic stuff and the branding that we're doing and becoming, as some people, I had Tim Brown on recently, and Dan Antonelli talks about it being 5 Mile famous. The branding is what actually works. We've got all these, hundreds of 5-star reviews on Google, and people hear us, they see us, they feel us. And then when they do need us, they remember our name and they go and they do their research and all that. So all that to say, a lot of times, especially from the organic side, marketing, you can't measure it. Just like we talked about earlier with the coach, you can't measure it. Hey, I'm paying this for a billboard and I'm getting this return. In the home service space, when someone's driving down the road and they see a billboard, they probably don't need their crawl space fixed that day. But the next time it pours and their crawl space is flooded, they're gonna be like, who do I always hear? Oh, HydroHelp. I've heard them 1,000 times and now I need them. I feel like that's
Yeah.
time, like we want instant gratification. Sometimes we don't get that. So Cory, thank you so much. Tons of insight, sales, marketing, investing, training, leading, numbers, all those things. As we wrap all this up and let you go on with your day of running your organization, we want our listeners to take immediate action here. Give our listeners one thing that they can do within the next 24 hours to move their business forward. It can be something super simple that they just need to take action on within the next 24 hours to work on their business?
Within 24 hours, I'd say change your mindset. Stop being that guy that says either I know it all or I can't do it. Right? You can do it. Coming from a blue collar fireman, not that I'm where I want to get to, but I'm on the right path. If I can do it, you can do it. Look for that path that's already cut through the woods and just jump on that path and follow it. It's somebody's already done it ahead of you, and I don't be willing to ask for help. Change your mindset, ask for help. Two things. I'll one up you. I'll go two things. Change your mindset, ask for help. The worst thing somebody can tell you if you send them a message on Facebook, the worst thing Tommy Mello could have done is not answer me, and it's okay. He's busy. It's not a big deal. So don't be afraid to ask for help, but invest in yourself, change your mindset, and have fun doing it.
Love it. Cory Parks, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your journey, and providing a ton of actionable advice for all the blue collar business owners out there as we continue our journey to prosperity. Before we sign off, if our listeners want to ask you a question, where would be the best place to reach out to you?
Probably my LinkedIn be best. Just look me up, Cory, Cory, Parks, Parks. Look me up on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I'm happy to help.
There y'all have it. Go to LinkedIn, reach out to Cory. If he is at a point where you want to get to, he's already cleared the path. You just got to reach out and ask for help. Cory, thanks again for coming to the show. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Paul.